Hey there, lovely. If you're a driven and highly ambitious woman who has checked all the boxes, followed all the rules, only to realize you don't actually feel fulfilled or you don't feel like you're living your purpose, then you are absolutely in the right place. My name is Melissa Chavis. I'm an intuitive mindset coach, and I am absolutely obsessed with helping you discover your true purpose, that thing you were put here on this earth to do, so that you can live the most fulfilling and abundant life possible. Hey there, beautiful. Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Awakening podcast. And happy Thanksgiving if you are here in the United States. And also, don't forget, just because they're family doesn't mean you have to put up with their crap. Boundaries are critical this time of year. Okay, that's just my little holiday season PSA for you. Today, I really want to talk about the number one thing that I see holding women back from truly pursuing a life that they love, pursuing this life where they are living truly for themselves instead of everyone else around them. Because so many of us who have been high achievers all our lives, we pretty much, we played by the rules. We did everything we were supposed to do and lived a lot of our lives, or, some of us are still living our lives for other people instead of for ourselves. And so that's a whole topic for another day. But essentially, I see so many women who are truly feeling like they're ready to live the life that they've been dreaming of, this life that is truly meant for them instead of everyone else around them. And there is one thing that truly I see stopping you in your tracks as soon as you get to this point where you've realized that you want to make some changes, you want to do life differently now, but there's one thing that keeps stopping you every time you try to make forward progress. And that thing is your human brain. So if you've been around the podcast for a little while, you've probably heard me talk about the brain and essentially how it functions, the way it's meant to work, and how that ultimately ends up impacting us on a day-to-day basis. So essentially, the human brain takes up a lot of energy to do any kind of thinking. Our brains use about 30% of our energy every single day. So it takes up a lot of energy. It takes a lot of effort to use your brain to think through things. So, because of this, the brain has evolved over time to become highly, highly efficient, right? It wants to use the least amount of energy possible because it's hard work to think about things. And so it essentially is set up to work similarly to a computer program where you have certain input that you put into your brain, whatever the situation is, the circumstances around you, and it essentially pretty quickly and effortlessly checks that data, that external data that you're putting in there. It checks it against the subconscious programming or subconscious beliefs that you're holding in your brain. And then it spits out this automatic result for us. And a lot of times, this is very helpful. I mean, have you ever had one of those days where you spend a lot of time actually like thinking about something and processing it and digesting it? Like you're at a seminar or you're attending some sort of informational meeting at work that's like hours long, and you get done. You walk away from that and you feel physically exhausted because your brain has been working so much to think about and process and digest the information that's been coming in all day. So, can you imagine if you had to think about things and truly try to like process everything that was happening moment to moment throughout your day? It would just be overwhelming. You would be exhausted every single day. Like, even just think about driving, right? Something that I'm sure you can remember, when you learn to drive, it was very energy intensive because you had to think about each step. You had to think about pushing on the gas, pushing on the brake, making sure that you're checking your mirrors. And, you've got the steering wheel and you're making sure that you're staying between the lines and you're doing all of this thinking in the moment and trying to kind of process it all, make sure you're doing everything correctly. But my guess would be that it's very automatic for you at this point. You can drive from point A to point B and barely even remember the drive a lot of times. It just happens so automatically for us now. So it makes so much sense that the brain works in this way and that it would want to automate as much as possible, right? So there is very good reason for this kind of programming processing setup that we've evolved into over time. However, most of the groundwork for that programming that you have in there was laid by the time you were 7 years old. So that means that you were essentially getting all of the rules set inside your brain from the time you were born until about age 7. So it was coming from all of the people around you, everything that you were witnessing and experiencing in your life during that period of time. But probably what you've realized at this point is that some of that programming is a little bit off. Some of those rules that have been set in your brain just don't quite apply to your life at this point, and they're not helpful for you in the things that you actually want to do in your life at this point. And so you just don't feel so good about that computer programming that you've got in there that's running on a day-to-day basis for you at this point. So you've decided you want to make some changes. You've decided, like, I need to figure out how to kind of walk through my day differently. I need to be this different version of myself. And you're trying to think more intentionally. You're trying to act more intentionally in your day-to-day life. And, that looks like setting intentions for your day, learning about thought work, and trying to think about things in a different way in the moment. But you are likely not seeing the results that you really want to see at this point. You are thinking about some things differently. You understand conceptually that you need to move through life differently in order to have a different life, in order to create this different reality for yourself. But your day-to-day life still looks pretty much the same. And you're not actually feeling like you're making a whole lot of progress toward these big changes that you want to make in life. The thing that I have realized and learned through my own experience and in working with other women is that it's likely because those current beliefs that you're holding on to, that current programming that you have in there, is likely serving you in some way. You're getting something out of holding on to those belief systems, to holding on to that programming, to continuing to move through your day in a very similar way to what you always have. And likely the thing that you're getting is a sense of safety, a sense of comfort, a sense of having some idea of what your future looks like, this sort of certainty that you believe you have when you continue to move through life in the same way. And because of the way our brains have evolved over time, your brain values safety, certainty, comfort above all else. And so your brain sees this sense of safety as outweighing any of the potential benefits of changing things in your life. So even though you're probably feeling pretty miserable a lot of the time, your brain is prioritizing that sense of safety, security, comfort above any of those other emotions that you might be feeling, even if that's like depressed and burnt out and miserable in your day-to-day life. your brain sees safety as the most important aspect. And so it's hanging on to those beliefs and those patterns and that programming so that you can continue to stay safe. Because so far in your life, you have remained alive by operating on that programming that you have in there. And so your brain thinks, okay, this programming is keeping us alive. It's keeping us safe. Let's keep moving forward in the same direction. Let's keep doing these same things so that we continue to stay safe and alive. But in our current world, most of us, now I'm not saying that everyone is safe and secure in their environments. That is not true. But for most of us in our day-to-day lives, our lives are not threatened. We are not having to put our safety, physical safety, above everything else. We are able to concentrate on other aspects, but our brain doesn't realize that. So I can tell you for years and years, I was in this place of knowing that I wanted to change, of actually knowing what I wanted to do. I mean, literally from 2018 on, I knew I wanted to be a life coach. As soon as I found out what it was and understood this whole concept of life coaching, I was like, that's what I'm meant to be doing. That is what I'm supposed to be doing. But at the time, I had already spent 14 years building my human resources career, and I knew nothing about being a life coach. I knew nothing about starting my own business. I knew nothing. I didn't even know the first step to take to do that. And so I kept telling myself, well, my brain, kept reiterating for me that my current life, my current circumstances, everything that I was doing, how I was moving through my life day to day had kept me safe for all these years. And so if I just kept doing the same thing, then I was going to continue staying safe. And when I would think about making the change, making a shift in my life, creating this different reality for myself, where I'm a life coach and I'm running my own business, that would feel very scary and unsafe and not so secure. And it was unknown. I didn't know what would happen if I actually went and tried that. And so my current belief system at the time, my current programming was telling me that it was better to just stay safe. It was better to stay where I was, to keep doing the same things. And I needed to avoid all of that discomfort, uncertainty, fear, all of those things that would come with actually trying to move my life in that direction. So these beliefs that I had about, not knowing the first thing or not even knowing how to be a life coach or knowing nothing about this whole thing. And these beliefs that I really was fine in what I was doing and that I really should just keep doing the same thing and just stay where I was. All of those beliefs, while we can see from this perspective now, they were holding me back. They were actually benefiting me in a lot of ways. They were keeping me from facing any kind of fears that I might have or feeling really uncomfortable or scared or, this sense of the unknown. Like they were keeping me from facing any of that. And in my brain, it was much more important to avoid all of those things and stay in safety, stay in comfort, stay in certainty than to have to face all those things because my brain sees those things as very dangerous because it doesn't understand that my physical safety was never in jeopardy and that I would still remain alive even if I felt scared or even if something felt dangerous or uncertain to me, I would still be alive and I would still be safe and I would still make it through those situations. But my brain was telling me that no, like you need to stay where you are because that's too much. That's too dangerous. Don't even try it. So it was benefiting me because I got to avoid all of those things. I got to avoid facing my fears. I got to avoid the uncertainty that would come with trying to follow a different path in life. And so there are benefits that we are reaping from holding on to whatever belief system, whatever programming we're currently operating on. That's why so many women are staying in the same place and they're not actually fully leaning into creating these changes in their lives because they are benefiting in many ways, at least according to their human brains. They're benefiting in many ways from staying in the same place, from staying in their lane and continuing to move through life in the same way day after day. So even though they're feeling pretty miserable a lot of times and feeling very stuck and like, I don't want to be here anymore, they're also feeling this level of comfort and safety and certainty of staying in the same place, of continuing on the same path. But ultimately, if you do want to make the changes, if you do want to follow this new path, you have to get over that. You have to be able to go against your brain's programming, wiring for keeping you safe. Jump over that fence, get to the other side where you feel okay facing the discomfort and facing the fear and dealing with that uncertainty that does come along with going a different route. And obviously, I ultimately got to that place. I got through that and I did what I needed to do to create my current reality for myself. But my brain stood in my way for many years. It really was not until I got the support that I needed, the guidance from someone else who had done that thing before me, that I was actually able to break through and start going that different route and getting to this different life that I now live. So, if you're sitting there and you just know that you want to create a different reality for yourself, you know that you want to start living for you instead of doing all of the things that everyone else expects of you in your life, I would suggest taking some time today and actually just journaling on this concept, this idea that your current beliefs and your current patterns and programming are keeping you safe. So I would first ask, what beliefs are you currently holding on to that are keeping you from pursuing this new version of reality for yourself, from creating a new definition of success for you? And then I would ask, what am I gaining by holding on to these beliefs? What am I getting from this ultimately? How am I benefiting here? And I think that you will be really amazed at the insight that you'll gain from this simple exercise. Because when we start asking ourselves these questions that we maybe haven't asked before, it allows us to think about things in a different way and to process things in this new way and see some things that maybe we haven't seen before that haven't actually been brought to light for us. So I highly recommend sitting down for a minute and taking some time to journal on that today. And if any of this resonated with you today, if you are excited to hear this kind of content and this is helpful for you, I would love to hear from you. You can either DM me on Instagram at Melissa Ann Chavis, and I will include that here in the show notes, or you can just leave me a comment wherever you are watching this or listening to this. Just leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Is this helpful? Are you gaining anything from this content? Let me know. I would love to hear from you. And just thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And hopefully you enjoy your holiday. Like I said, if you're here in the US celebrating Thanksgiving, and I will see you back here, same time next week.
That's it for another episode of the Authentic Awakening podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you found it helpful, I'd love to hear from you. You can do that by liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel or rating and reviewing the podcast wherever you're listening.